Hello, everybody. Well, thank you for waking up bright and early. And yesterday we had Monsieur le Ministre and many men opening day one of NFT Paris. So I'm very happy to and honored to open day 2 of NFT Paris with an all-female panel. So please, I hope you can give them a round of applause. So I am Fanny Lakoubay, and I'll be your moderator today. And very happy to start the day with a subject close to our hearts, art curation. So I know it said curation, but it's really, curation can be many things, as you'll see as well during the panel. But it's we want to really be focused on art curation, and we are joined by. I would say the creme de la creme of Web3 curators. And so I think we should just get started, because I was going to introduce you, but our host did already that. So curation. So curation is, like many other words in Web3, like community is overused, misused, misunderstood, and oftentimes like really reduced to nothing, like, a featured list of links, OpenSea links, really close to a Netflix, like queue or, list. And, but Web3 did not invent curation, right? Like, I mean, it's, I'm not gonna go all the way back, but it comes from Latin, from the word cura, which means care and protect, and it's a very well-known concept in the art world, and oftentimes used more in a museum environment and than less in a commercial setting, but it is not new. So we're going to cover what Web3 did not change, what it changed, and what really still need to happen. But what I want to ask all of you first is what curation means to you, because we have to really, I think, level out what we're talking about and what's at stake. And so in pretty much one sentence or one example of your daily work and daily exercise of curation, what really does it mean to you? Eleonora?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. What does it mean to me? I can give you an example, which is very recent. For instance, the other day, I was curating this space that I launched on Super Rare, and it was a constant contact and messaging with the artists, doing things together. It's almost like a collaboration sometimes. So for instance, discussing the titles, the topics. Okay, so you are going to send an artwork, let's see it together. What topic did you pick? What, are you sure? Is it the way to phrase it in a nice way for you, of course, because at the center there's always the artists, and discussing titles together and words, descriptions. It's it might sound a little sterile like this, but it really is constant, I would say, intellectual debate, and also, trying to help to put ideas into words, and really like a constant contact with the creators.
Yeah. And Caitlin, at MakersPlace, so your role is involves that as well. So would love to have that point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So at MakersPlace, I work directly with creators. It's all I do in the business development field. I work with artists deciding which projects oftentimes to launch major programs for. I work with kind of the premium category at MakersPlace. And the first thing I thought of on this panel is just the fact that MakersPlace is a curated platform. You apply or you are invited to be on it in the first place. So there's something kind of inherently not entirely decentralized about it, because there is a level of curation just in the artists that are represented. And then what my job is on top of that is to look at a lot of the artists who are talking to me about their kind of big pitch ideas. And then I have to work on assessing, is this the right thing for our platform, for our collectors? Is this something that this major vision is something that MakersPlace can actually help happen? A great case is Alex Groves from AA Murakami has this beautiful immersive installation here with smoke rings floating up into the ceiling. It's absolutely beautiful. But when he brought that project to me, at first I had to think very carefully about, can we really realize this? Can we bring this to life in the right way? It took a lot of research and kind of discernment, but the answer was definitively yes. But that's kind of my day-to-day level of curation, is thinking about and sifting through projects and making sure we can support them in the right way.
Yeah.
Thanks, Fanny, for the question. I find it very fascinating to speak about curation, especially at this time of the day. But welcome, everyone, to this talk again. And for me, curation is more about, from a museum standpoint, I would say, it's more about being not exclusive, but inclusive, and to be a place where you can translate and communicate to the public, to the wider audience, what is that you're trying to do. So if you're putting together works, you want to find a way to convey the meaning of why those works are talking to each other, why those artists are meaningful to each other, and why that is relevant to the public. So that's curation for me, in a nutshell.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I mean, echoing what a lot of my panelists have just said, but I think specifically for us at Vertical Crypto Art, where we focus a lot is actually on in real life exhibitions and gallery shows. So curation is obviously a constant relationship, as Eleonora said, with the artist. And what we think about a lot is actually how the work then comes to life in these settings, and what makes sense, especially for like the digital medium, on how the work should be displayed. What is the way that people can understand them better? What is the way that the actual like native form of the work should be displayed if you're working with generative art or code or 3D or AR, VR. So obviously, like, a relationship with the artist, a partnership, but specifically for us as well, it's also how that translates into like in real life moments as well.
So for the fun story is that like actually that question, that prompt like of what curation means to you was a series of I think 6 months of discussions that Micol organized, I think already 2 years ago almost, and that like it was after trying to talk about curation. So we're not going to cover everything in 30 minutes, but it was very important that like after a few try of like getting everybody to talk about something, to realize that like actually nobody was talking about the same thing, and then asking that question, you're like, oh, okay. I had no idea that like this was so, but it's interesting that a lot of common threads come back, like the relationship with the artist, the context setting as well, and so if we stay on that topic, and what pretty much stayed the same, from curating, and, what we now call traditional art, like to, digital art, but also like maybe more specifically like generative art. Like, yes, the art changed, but what really stayed the same for you, like in curating in Web3? No order. I mean, I look at you, so yes, you thought.
Yes. Now, well, this overused word, the storytelling, it doesn't matter if you do it in Web3, Web2, Web1, 0. It's we're telling stories, and all of us in different ways, from different angles. We all described a way. We are here to tell the stories of the artists, of the creators, of the space, of the promise of Web3 and blockchain, of a better and free world, of everything. But we are here. It's almost like translators, and I don't think that it changed. Then we don't want to talk about how it is done. It has been done, and it's done now. But I don't think that part changed. Curators are translators of magic into understandable language, I think.
It's almost as if that just inherent need for curation is just the constant, is the thing that stays the same, just not the requirement, but the desire for it for some people. There are so many collectors who I talk to in and out of the space who are asking the question, I'm so interested, I'm so passionate, I love digital art, but I want help finding my way to the right artists, the right creators. And the more that you connect with people, especially with collectors, if you're doing something, you know, quite commercial, which of course I am, the more that you know the collector, the more that you've seen perhaps their private collection, you've looked through what they have assessed, what they've wanted, then you can kind of connect them to the right type of artists or the right type of projects. And that need is still constantly and consistently there in this space as well.
Yeah, I think actually, like, you know, I don't think anything changes from like Web3 or anything, you know, but I think it's this this idea of also like creating ecosystems that want to give out a message. And I think like curation doesn't only stop at art. Like you can educate talks, you can curate, you know, communities. Like it's a very broad topic to explore. And I think it's mostly about like trying to find a mix and a balance between, I think, trying to be inclusive, especially within this ecosystem of Web3, which, you know, started with the idea of kind of like bringing down the barriers of, you know, entry for artists, etc. So trying to find a balance into being a curator and not a gatekeeper, contextualizing what is happening, and at the same time trying to let people into what you're doing as well. So, yeah.
I would say it's about reading the moment we're living in and being able to simply translate that into what you're doing. Something that I can just from experience say that Web3 is doing that Web2 wasn't that able to do is reducing the gap between the arrangement of an exhibition and the actual realization of that exhibition. Like when I used to work in other institutions, the lead time was normally around 3 to 5 years. And if you're trying to read the moment we're living in and look ahead in time, that is very difficult to do. And also you need large sponsors to make those exhibitions happen. Something that we can do in Web3 is reducing that time and do an exhibition in a month in the metaverse and make it accessible to all. So that's how I think curation has been shifting and becoming way more accessible.
Yeah, and it's a good segue to, yes, a lot changed. I mean, I mentioned also the art and new forms of exhibitions as well. Before we go on what changed, I think one thing that we have to mention still that like hasn't quite changed is that oftentimes, too often than none, curators are not really paid still. So this is still something that you know we'll talk about on opportunities in Web3 that actually the technology can change as well. So I think you know. Also, let's focus on things that changed now, like really with Web3. I mean, there's oftentimes this tendency to idealize what happened in the art world and art market, like before Web3, say, oh, traditional art collectors, and we're talking about Christie's and Sotheby's, etc. It was not all perfect, like way far from that, right? Like, and I think this is the same, right? Like curation is, it was, and you said the word, Micol, like gatekeeping, like for some people, like, you know, especially at the beginning of Web3, like decentralization maximalists were like, kill curation, it's centralized, like no more. And in 2018, you could not have a talk about curation on a Web3 at a Web3 conference without like, I mean, people leaving the room. It's a little extreme, but but I think so. You know, like a lot has to change, and a lot like is currently changing with Web3, and actually, you all like come from like backgrounds where you were, you know, curating like in different manners like before Web3. So would love to have your insights on what changed like really for you. Plus some, you know, positive and negative.
I think the thing that's changed that's the best about it is the collaborative aspect of it. So before I came into Web3, I worked at auction houses my entire career. Most recently, I was a business director at Sotheby's for many years. And when you think about what puts together the sales and the exhibitions there, it's established market artists, it's conditions. You can almost look at a list of requirements, and you can say, okay, 4 or 5 boxes were checked, so this piece belongs in this auction. It was very transactional in a way. Something that's beautiful about the Web3 space is that curation can be anything. It can have any common theme. It can move so quickly. And this collaborative aspect, MakersPlace has worked with galleries. We've worked with auction houses. We've worked with other marketplaces. In our booth, one of the things that I love the most is we have a beautiful digital photography salon-style hang. I really wanted to show a lot of photography, but I wanted someone to curate it as a third party. So we asked Whale Shark to come in, who is someone we've got a great relationship with. Obviously, he's a visionary collector. He curated it in place of us, which I thought was a really wonderful touch, where it was something that MakersPlace ourselves didn't curate. We asked a collector in the space to do it. So I think that cross-category collaborative aspect to curation is something really beautiful and really consistent across so many of us in this space.
I think for me, it's definitely been the global aspect of having the possibility with this technology to actually know about artists from literally all over the world. And, you know, like whenever we do like group shows, or I look at where these artists are from, and I'm talking to artists from like Singapore to like Lagos to Argentina to, you know, the US to Berlin, like anywhere. And I think it gave the possibility and the opportunity for a lot of creators and artists to have access and to have a market and to have a medium. And yeah, I think that's something that maybe wasn't as easy and as facilitated in kind of like more traditional ecosystems before.
I think curation was very human-centered, still is, but in a way there's a set missing here, which I think it belongs to AI, which maybe many of you will think it's crazy to think that AI is going to replace us in the future, but it might. So I don't think that will be scary or dangerous, but I think we need to acknowledge it. And in a way, it's something that everyone has been talking about, but not really, I think, digesting. And what has changed is the inclusion of technology. From my experience, people used to be like real gatekeepers and collaborating with other institutions, but always kind of like putting more than, I would say, collectors, patrons, at the front, because their support was very much needed to put together exhibitions, same as sponsors and all the players that are needed to put together a good budget to do it, that often doesn't get covered by the ticketing or any other sale. So I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that technology is here, is present, and there's a seat reserved for it that will be even more present in the future.
There were a few experiments of you know, human curation versus AI curation already a few years ago. Like, I haven't heard of one recently, but with all the AI improvements per se, like that would be interesting to do one. Maybe one of you can take that up.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to say, I think what changed in Web3 is the distribution because of the blockchain. And with distribution, I mean, you are part of something greater. It's like you're part of something bigger. So if you think that you're gonna move by yourself, it's probably not possible anymore. It's like a big wave that moves together, which is over called community, but it is true. It's a bigger system. But I would like to say what it should change that we didn't touch upon. And
Oh, that's my next section, but sure.
Oh, well, yeah,
no. Okay, fine.
What should change for curators, I think, which I put an hashtag on the floor downstairs in my booth, curators are creators. We are not ever included and recorded, registered on the blockchain. So it means that the way we're looking at value is still transactional, from A to B, from artist to collector or vice versa. It means that on any platforms where I put my text, research, and gave my soul, as we all do here, I do not appear, I do not exist, because I am not part of this transactional way of doing things on the blockchain. So we should be there, and it should be a transaction that includes, or maybe it shouldn't be a transaction anymore, but then it goes to the holochain. But we should, curators should be included in a greater transactional way and recognized, because the value is not only the monetary value.
And it's a fluidity of roles that like we have never seen before, right? Like in well, not just the art market, but many industries, you're one thing or another. But the beauty of something new is that actually reversing your hashtag, like creators are also curators, and it's very interesting because it's you know, giving other perspectives.
No, I would just on Eleonora's point, I think there's one of the great things about blockchain is provenance, right? So as important as it is for artists, it's important for collectors, and it's important actually for curators as well. So actually having that as part of the metadata and like what is inscribed in the blockchain is something that in the future as well historically adds value to the artist, to the exhibition, to the whole ecosystem. So yeah, I completely agree.
I love this idea has been brought up here because I was even thinking about, so a lot of what we've minted and created for the MakersPlace booth here, because provenance, which is such an important part of the art market, can be so tangibly a part and a piece of each of these items now, we did have and suggest to many of the creators that they include the fact that these pieces were created for the NFT Paris 2023 installment. But why didn't we add the curator information? It's a great idea. I mean, after this, I hope you guys all know I'm going to be asking all of you to be curating things with us. And when that happens, I'm going to hope and suggest to every single one of those creators that they, as well as adding what it was curated for, what it was put together for, which is such an important, interesting historical piece of the artwork, put the curator information on there as well. It's something that makes so much sense, and I think we're starting to lay the groundwork for exactly how we want to present and represent these artworks. That's a major part of it, and it's something easy for us to do and easy for us to change in the market. So here's to hoping all of us do it in this upcoming year.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have built a product on stage.
MakersPlace soon.
No, but and I think this is a good thinking on what should still change to make that happen. And all of you have like actually hope after the panel you go visit the different sections where all of you are actually exhibiting works. There's fifth section that you should also check out with JPEG space. That is a new like curation protocol where everybody can sort of use sort of a commons. I mean, I will not be able to summarize it in 5 seconds, but new tools for curators and trying to break the mold of this like curators as gatekeeper of the bon goût and very centralized, like very limited number of curators like that. I think we can throw away somehow and agree to disagree. But yeah, and so I'm wondering like if you have seen exciting ideas like what we just mentioned, but like other things that like you want to see move the needle forward in terms of art curation.
I think you, before you touched on a point that curators very often still don't get paid. And I think it's very true. And actually, like if you think about the role of a curator, especially within this ecosystem right now, is also selling the work, right? But actually, in the traditional contemporary, that's not the role of the curator. That is the art dealer. So these two roles are very tied together and actually almost the same, which brings up a lot of other questions of, why are you curating? And so then do you curate to sell or do you curate to, tell a message? And so then you have to balance between the two, and it's a struggle that I personally have, very, very often because the means are not there yet to actually support curation as a standalone job, as a standalone thing. So I hope that gets developed, whether it's through marketplaces, whether it's through, smart contracts, like however that can happen. But I think that should be important to looking forward.
Totally on point. Thank you for bringing that up. I couldn't be more in agreement with you. I don't really appreciate when curators need to talk about the price of an artwork and try to sell it, because to me, that's something that really hurts my feelings when we are talking about art and sharing it because of all other reasons. So, but that's a choice. That's a choice, and you know, the fact that Web3 allowed artists to be directly in touch with their collectors, I think it was the reason for curators to not be included at the very beginning, because that was a very one-to-one relationship that was established and supported by that type of technology. So including this role in such technology today, it's something that we need to be careful about how we are bridging, you know, the more curatorial view into something that was meant to be a transaction towards the sale of an artwork, the provenance of an artwork, the certification on a public ledger. So that's interesting to see how these things are relevant to us today, and also to see how museums and institutions are endorsing those projects, and how do we need so. We stepped away from that world because we thought it was a gatekeeper for this kind of art. Now we pray museums and institutions to find a spot for digital art and NFTs in their rooms. Why so? We're back to square one. So I think it's interesting to question that, and how do we want to go with Web3 in the future?
It's interesting. We have this almost, it's one of the reasons why, and I know all of us who are here, we speak at a lot of conferences, we're on a lot of panels, but something that's so important about just having the conversation is that every single time I'm invited to do something like this, I walk off stage thinking, I'm feeling inspired right now, but I'm filled with new ideas, and the feedback is so interesting and so important. And some of us I've known before today, some of us I haven't, but even moments like this, conversations like this are so important, and the space moves so quickly. We have the tools to change it. We have the tools to disrupt what the art market has been for hundreds of years. We just need to put it in motion. And that's one of the beautiful things, though, here, is that you sit down, you have these conversations, you make connections, then you you think about these ideas and you put them in play. And I'm excited to see, even after this, where a lot of us go with the inspiration that we've taken just from the panel this morning. So thank you, Fanny.
No, from a more pure creative perspective, I feel the way I see the art of the future, the artworks of the future is really collective artworks, because I don't think that like single artists are going to create, we'll always have single artists creating art, but for the most contemporary, I really see groups of people working together with different expertise for an artwork or an art project. So I would love for curators to be involved in that groups, because we already are, but using the blockchain that we have to, I mean, we only use probably the 1% of the potential of the blockchain, so let's use it to really like put it on chain, these groups of people that include us, even in the creation part. It's very important, I think. That's what I hope to see.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on discussing the subject for, as you said, Caitlin, it's fascinating. And I think, but something to remember is that it's always easier to reproduce something that exists already. And you probably are from very different industries, and you see out there in the show like different applications, fashion, gaming, like luxury, art. And nobody wants like to just put these industries on the blockchain and call it a day. At least like we don't want that. So, but it's harder to move the needle forward, like invent new ways to curate. But I would encourage all of you to try to go that extra mile, like to just say like what is really changing? Like, is it just replicating something that already exists and that somehow just works without the blockchain? We don't need the blockchain for everything, but for some things we actually really, really need it. So on that note, I really do want to thank all of you for your expertise and your friendships, because I've known you for many years as well, and on that as well, like really check out like their curation at NFT Paris, and give them a really big round of applause. Like,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our first